So it was a woeful Easter weekend for Man United, losing 4-0 against Everton. That was their fourth away defeat in a row, the worst run since 1981, their sixth defeat in 8. It's a very, very difficult time for Man United fans. More importantly, a confusing time after the sort of highs and lows that have come up this season. Sam from UnitedPeoplesTV joins me right now to try and digest what's going on at Man United right now, because I was chatting to someone in the office about it, Sam, about where would you sit if you were a Man United fan, because you felt like, oh, okay, the problem was Mourinho, or maybe a big part of the problem was Mourinho, and that Solskjaer was the answer. But the run of results in 6 defeats out of the last 8 games, it's been terrible, hasn't it? And it's kind of gone back to those woeful ways of Mourinho at his worst. How would you explain the current form of Man United?
I think I was I felt quite strongly about this at the time, that United shouldn't have given Solskjaer the contract when they did. And I'm not saying that in the idea that Solskjaer doesn't deserve it, because he's the right man for the job. But I just didn't see a necessity to announce him before the end of the season, because I thought, what if it could rock the boat? And it really looks like it has rocked the boat, because it seems like the players are now playing differently than they were playing prior to that announcement. Because United's form since then has massively dipped, and massively dipped after we peaked against PSG as well.
Don't you think it's strange that something as simple as announcing a manager who'd had a great run and is totally loved by the fans can wobble a team so much? It feels like, that sounds like the squad is strangely fragile if you're getting affected by a manager going on a good run and then being given the job. I struggle with this a little bit. I understand if you don't think he is the right man for the job at Man United, because look, it is a huge job, and his experience as a manager, at least, doesn't totally fit a job at that position. But the general consensus among Man United fans is that he is the right guy.
You've said it there. Like, the squad is fragile. I mean, United squad, look, nobody felt that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's run in that first few months was, oh, look, all the problems are gone. Now we're going to win the league again. That was huge purple patch that came with a momentum shift of having a new manager. It went on a lot longer than anybody expected it to. And we recovered after we lost against PSG at Old Trafford. And we had that magical moment out in France, which was one of the greatest European nights in recent history of United. But this squad is shit. This squad is so far behind Man City and Liverpool, it's not even funny. Paul Pogba and David De Gea are the only 2 world-class players that this squad has. And it's because of years of misrecruitment. And look, I'm going to sound like a broken record, because it's the problem with the structure of the club. It's the problem with everything behind the scenes is the reason we're falling apart right now. Not just because of the players or the manager. It's an accumulation of issues.
Just to finish off with Solskjaer there. So 2 things. First of all, because we're also going to talk about this Man United squad, which is where, you've just done a video on your channel about Gary Neville, and he was furious, he said himself, and he was furious with the playing squad, not with the manager. But just to stay with the manager for a second, because we will get into those players and who should stay and who should go. That purple patch, why do you value this purple patch above this poor patch, if that makes sense?
I wouldn't say I value either above the other, but the one saving grace, and I suppose as an eternal optimist I'll say this, but had Solskjaer continued with this purple patch, and it wasn't just a patch, and we went through the whole way through the season playing like that, we finished in the top 4, everything would look rosy at United. I don't think we would do too much in the summer, because Ed Woodward would say, look, Solskjaer's a genius. He doesn't need any more players.
And as bad as it is right now, you've still got that opportunity. You still, you've got the games to do it. You're not that far off.
We would already be outside of the top 4 if Arsenal and Chelsea had done their jobs at the weekend and on Monday against Burnley and Crystal Palace, 2 teams who, let's be honest, they should be beating at home. Yeah. But they faltered. And they've given United now still clinging on to the fact that we could finish in the top 4, but that will be gone on Wednesday night, because the derby is going to be a grim game. And maybe even worse for United fans is if we turn up against City and we beat City. You say, well, how can you go and get pumped 4-0 by Everton and then decide to beat the best team in England at home a few days later?
Well, that's an element of what Gary Neville was talking about. It was about work rate, wasn't it? And that is I think that would be almost the sort of the rubber stamp of approval to suggest that this squad, however talented, in terms of attitude and application, they're not where they need to be if you can beat Man City who are on a 10-game winning run. Because it would show that you've got the players who've got enough to get a result like that. But then you look at the Everton game, and Everton ran 8 kilometres more than Man United in that game, which is absolutely unacceptable for any game of football, let alone a game at this level, and Man United for what they're known for. So that leads us to that question of how many of these United players at the end of the season would you really be disappointed to lose? When I ask that question, I've got a few names written down here, but it'd be good to chat about a few of them. But when I ask that question, who is the name that you go, this guy can't leave? Is there anyone?
Paul Pogba.
Paul Pogba's the guy.
Paul Pogba has had a sensational season numbers-wise, but if you're looking inside this squad, Paul Pogba is genuinely on a different level altogether from any other outfield Manchester United player. It is as simple as that. Just as David De Gea is one of the best in class in goal, although he's had a poor season, Paul Pogba's a sensational midfielder. And anybody wanting to get rid of him for his attitude problems are overlooking just how good he is. Because if United have already got a tough task this summer in getting rid of the wrong players from this squad and bringing in better ones, getting rid of your best one is not the way to start that.
This is me playing devil's advocate, and I'm not sure if I totally believe in this. But this idea that they're not working hard enough, it did feel like from that Gary Neville rant, for want of a better word, that he was placing Pogba within that. And as one of the leaders of Man United, as the most high-profile player, if you are going to make those sweeping changes, is he one of those guys that it isn't the end of the world, that if you lose him, you believe it is the end of the world?
I wouldn't say it's the end of the world. It's just Man United would really, really, really struggle to replace Pogba. I mean, I've been very critical
because he's got
Pogba.
So much quality. Is that what you're saying?
He's so much quality. Everyone who's watched my channel knows I've been, I suppose, hypercritical of Pogba because of the levels I know he can get to. That's why the finger gets pointed at Pogba.
Yeah, I think that's the baseline for all the criticism that he gets from everywhere, is because people know just how good he is and has been at different times.
And I mean, look, if Scott McTominay was playing like that every week, it wouldn't be getting that many, probably be getting more praise than anything else. But I've been critical of Pogba, and yes, he does need to improve. And yes, we haven't seen the sort of captains type performances from a player who came through the academy, went on loan to Juve for a few years, then came back. But we need more from Pogba, just like we need more from every other player in this squad. And I certainly wouldn't sell Pogba this summer, as far as I'm concerned anyway.
Okay, let's go through a couple of other names. And David De Gea has had a sort of a tough week or so, probably his worst season as a Man United player, certainly for the last 4 seasons. Initially when he came to the club, he had that wobble, but since then it's been incredible for you. I'm guessing he's one that you can't, despite a little blip, you can't let someone like him go.
No. I mean, the problems with David De Gea are United's making. Because the reason he's not signed his contract is because he wants parity with Alexis Sanchez on, 300 grand a week. And Alexis Sanchez shouldn't be at the club on 300 grand a week. It seemed like that was almost a trophy signing just to stop City signing him. And that's the reason why De Gea's not signed his new deal. I mean, if De Gea was going to leave because he didn't like the club, he would have done that during Moyes or Van Gaal or Mourinho. But he stayed through all of it. Has been our player of the season for like 3 out of the last 4 years.
Yeah.
Christ, I want to keep him at the club. Yeah. He's the best keeper in the world.
So then give me that. What about that front three on Saturday? Martial, Rashford and Lukaku. Who out of those guys would you be happy to see leave? Which one do you need? Are there any of those that need to leave?
The only one that needs to stay is Marcus Rashford. Now, Anthony Martial is looking more and more like a new nanny than anything else, and player who is truly magnificent on his day, but Christ, he frustrates you because there's so many games that just pass him by, and you think, why can't you do that every single week? And I don't know what the issue with Martial is. now that he's signed his new contract. As for Lukaku, man, you can replace Lukaku quite easily with a player that's better suited to this United team.
Right, simple as that. That's quite a fall from grace for Lukaku, isn't it?
Look, that's being harsh on Lukaku because he is a good player, but he'll never be a great striker in United's history. He's nowhere near the levels of like Van Persie's, of Rooney's that we've had come through the club. And he will score goals. He is a great goal scorer, but he's not a great footballer. And that's, I think, fair to say.
Final question, between now and the end of the season, because those dreams of the top four are still, alive, and there's been some reports talking about how some of these players are kind of part of their performances are down to the fact that they themselves are nervous about being in the Champions League, and if they're not, then they themselves want to leave. What the hell does Ole Gunnar Solskjaer do between now and the end of the season to change the feeling about the squad and finish the season on a high?
Honestly, I think we need to play the kids because we've got the players like Mason Greenwood, who scored, I think, 29 goals in 28 games for the under-18s this year. Play him. Drop the players that don't give a shit for the club and play somebody who at least, running around the pitch more than another team is not the mark of a great footballing team, but it's the mark of a set of players that genuinely want to play for their manager and play for the shirt that they are wearing. And there are so many passengers in this United squad now where it's abundantly clear that they're only there for the wages. And I know that's the consequence of modern football. It's a consequence of supporting United. That's going to happen. And I'm never going to get a set of 11 players I'm never going to get 11 Gary Nevilles again. But I can get more as a fan than what I'm seeing in this team. Play Angel Gomez, play Tahith Chong, play James Garner.
Even if it's at the cost of Champions League football?
I don't think... Look, United over the last few years have been in the Europa League plenty of times, and we signed big players on big money that whole time. We brought the best manager in world football in when we had Europa League football. Maybe not the world football, but Jose Mourinho is one of the elite managers, and we got him. We got plenty of players. United's ability to sign players will not be entirely dependent on the Champions League. Sure, it will make it harder, but that's not the be-all and end-all. As long as we've got Solskjaer in charge, the main thing that needs to happen is that recruitment has to be done properly. That technical director has to come in. That's the most important thing, not finishing in the top four.
Okay, so if you want to have more in-depth analysis on that rant from Gary Neville, then head over to UnitedPeoplesTV and check out Sam's channel. He's looked into those comments and if Gary Neville was right. If you enjoyed this video, then hit that like button. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Who would you keep at Man United, and what should Solskjaer do in the next few games up to the end of the season to make it feel a little bit better at Man United? Let me know in the comments below. Subscribe to Ball Street, and we'll see you soon.